As the new season kicks off next week, I've made plenty of preview videos on many teams such as the Houston Rockets, the Orlando Magic, and the Denver Nuggets. The next team I want to go into is the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, Milwaukee is a very interesting team to talk about in this video because they have a lot of questions going to the season regarding their age and the injury history of plenty of players, the coach, the roster, everything. There is a lot of concerns about this team, and especially for their franchise player and Giannis Antetokounmpo. In the last 3 seasons, he hasn't made it past the second round of the playoffs, and in fact, went out in the first round twice in those 3 years. And so far, in this current state, it's looking like it's going to be the same this year. And in this video, I'm going to tell the harsh truth about the Milwaukee Bucks. But first, hey man, say man, this is the A-Man Show back at it again for more content. Make sure y'all subscribe. I post NBA content, turn on post notifications so that way you don't miss anything new from me. Anyways, grab your popcorn, to relax, and enjoy the vid. Milwaukee ended their season with a first round exit between the Indiana Pacers, the same team that luckily, keyword, made it all the way to the East Finals where they will get swept by the champion Celtics. How that first round series transpired is because of injuries. Giannis went out with a left calf strain, and he missed the entirety of the first round of the playoffs because of that. Damian Lillard will get injured and miss Game 4 and 5, but come back in Game 6, but it was too late, thus losing in 6 games in the first round. The Bucks have been really quiet in the offseason, even though they signed guys such as Gary Trent Jr., DeLon Wright, and Taurean Prince to add 3-and-D depth on the roster. Is still a concern with the Bucks despite having a dark horse contender like roster. Ever since the Bucks won a championship in 21, they have been taking step backs, and with some that are outside of their control. In the 22 season, they looked like the team that can get back to the finals. They had a deeper team that year compared to the year prior, and with that, they will turn up come playoff time. But things will turn to the worst in the first round, where Khris Middleton will have an MCL strain in his knee in Game 2, and he will miss the remainder of the first round against the Bulls and the remainder of the entire playoffs. Although the Bucks will beat the Bulls easily in the first round, we all know that losing Middleton was a big blow, especially going up against the Celtics the later round. Giannis did everything he could against the Celtics and even took them to 7 games, but it was still not enough to get over the hump. As for Khris Middleton, he will actually miss the first 20 games of the 23 season due to that injury, and what's worse is that Middleton will miss an additional 17 games due to another injury to his other knee. Despite Giannis' dominance in the regular season that year and even taking the Bucks to the first seed and not just the Eastern Conference, but have the best record in the whole entire NBA for the second time of his career, we all know what happened in the playoffs because they ran into the Miami Heat, and they weren't some regular 8th-seeded team. They ran into playoff Jimmy and a red-hot Miami Heat team that finished them in 5 games, which makes the Bucks the second first-seeded team in NBA history to lose to an 8th seed. Although there is context needed to be noticed, such as Giannis missing Game 2 and 3 due to a back injury, but despite that, they won a game without Giannis, and I said that in my separate Giannis video. He definitely deserves some blame for not showing up in both fourth quarters of Game 4 and Game 5 and not even winning a game. And plus, what's even worse is blowing a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter in both games. And the other guy that deserves some blame is Jrue Holiday, shooting his team out of the game, and Jimmy Butler was having career games when defended by Holiday. And Mike Budenholzer also deserves some blame for not calling important timeouts and not setting a place for Giannis, and let alone not making any adjustments. And that's why the Bucks lost that series against the Heat, and immediately the front office fired Budenholzer. So in the 23 offseason, they had a lot of questions about what they're going to do with the roster and the coach. Are they going to trade away Jrue Holiday? What head coach the Bucks are going to hire? They have a lot to do that offseason. And also, Giannis during that time had an expiring contract. And what happened in the first round against the Heat, you know that Giannis is demanding the front office to retool this roster because if they don't, they're at risk of losing Giannis in the offseason. And so what the Bucks will do is that they will impulsively give Giannis somewhat lead GM power and let him pick the new head coach. Nick Nurse has been available during that time, and also he's the best coach available at that time. He's the one who won a championship with the Toronto Raptors in 2019, and he has proven that he's a great defensive coach, let alone a more competent head coach than Budenholzer. But instead of him, Giannis went with Adrian Griffin, a rookie head coach who was an assistant for Nick Nurse back in Toronto. And as y'all know, in September, the front office traded for Damian Lillard, thus getting rid of Jrue Holiday. Now, this new tandem, replacing a defensive star with a top 10 player in the NBA while not giving up too much of your roster, is a recipe for a championship favorite. At least we thought so. Although the Bucks were winning games, Damian Lillard was out of sync. At times, he looked like Portland Lillard, and then he will have games where he just cannot make shots like he used to. And then part of the terrible perimeter defense that he put out there in the court, the Bucks were struggling defensively. I mean, they were 19th in defensive rating, bad, despite having all defensive guys like Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo in the same court. Lillard in the first 34 games was averaging 25 points, but on 42% shooting. They were a middle of the pack defense, if not below average, despite a 30-13 record in January. The front office decided enough is enough already with Adrian Griffin, and so they fired him mid-season despite a great start. And then they went ahead and hired Doc Rivers as Griffin's replacement 3 days later, a coach who has been known to be a choker in the playoffs, and they still hired him anyways. Makes no sense. Even Doc Rivers initially didn't want the job, but the Bucks were so desperate to get an experienced head coach, he had no choice but to get this job. And sure, the Bucks did make some moves mid-season, such as getting a Patrick Beverley and a Danilo Gallinari to add more offensive and defensive help, but those guys are not going to make up for the defensive struggles. The Bucks, despite all the issues, still made the third seed in the East by winning 49 games, but like I said, going into the playoffs, Giannis had a calf strain. Damian Lillard was out in Game 4 and 5, and just Chris Middleton out there by himself against the healthier Pacers. It's just not enough. So Milwaukee, to me, I have really big concerns with this roster, despite them being a sneaky championship contender, and it's all due to Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers has proven to be a coach that is better than he actually is because of how talented the team is, and once come playoff time, he always gets exposed. He doesn't know how to make adjustments. He doesn't know how to structure an offense that gets the best out of his players. And that's the reason why this Lillard and Giannis duo may not work, because he may not know how to use Lillard at his fullest capabilities. We all know that Dame Lillard is a rhythm guy. He needs the offense to be ran by him and have everybody flow within him, including Giannis. And I believe that Nick Nurse was the right coach for this team. But then again, Giannis didn't go after him and instead went with the assistant and Adrian Griffin, who he publicly did not like and regretted going after that guy, and ended up with Doc Rivers. Giannis definitely deserves some blame for this situation, and because of his actions, he is left in a tough situation. Ever since the Bucks hired Adrian Griffin and traded for Damian Lillard, Giannis went ahead and signed that contract extension worth 3 years, $186 million. And all those things transpired from last year to this year. He is left with an incompetent head coach, an aging roster, if not the oldest team in the league, an injury-riddled Chris Middleton, who only played half of the last 164 games within a 2-year stretch, and because of his age, his knee problems will only get worse. Giannis himself has injury issues, being in and out in lineups, and even missing the playoffs at one point, and that is within a 2-year stretch. It's looking like Giannis may not ever make it back to the finals and win another ring with the Milwaukee Bucks, especially if you have Doc Rivers as your head coach. Looking back at the Jrue Holiday trade, even though Damian Lillard at the time was a top 10 player in the NBA, but looking at it now, Holiday recently helped lead the Celtics to another championship, which is pretty apparent to say the least. I'm not saying that the Bucks fucked up in the trade, but what I'm saying is that there's is something to think about. I truly believe that this team, specifically the duo of Giannis and Damian Lillard, can work with the right coaches around them. If they can get Lillard to play somewhat good defense and put him and Giannis to play at their best capabilities, then they'll definitely have a shot to win it all. But because of this unfortunate situation, having Doc Rivers as your head coach and injuries and add age, the Bucks will continue to disappoint and disappoint. For Giannis' sake, this man has been honestly underrated, to keep it a buck with you, knock on wood. Giannis has been the most dominant player in the NBA since Shaq. From 2018 to now, he averaged 29 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 58% from the field, including 2 straight seasons of averaging 30 points, 10 or more rebounds, 6 assists on 58% shooting. And he has been a 2-time MVP, a DPOY recipient, a consensus 5-time All-Defender, a 8-time All-NBA performer, including 6 straight first-team All-NBA selections, and he himself is about to hit 30 years old this year. He doesn't have that much time to continue to have dominant season after dominant season. And if the Bucks do not get better within 2 years, then Giannis must demand a trade out of Milwaukee. He already made up his mind that he wants to win more championships and become a top 10 player in NBA history. He's already the second best power forward of all time, and yes, over Kevin Garnett and Dirk Nowitzki. And if Giannis continues to win championships and finals MVPs, he can eclipse Tim Duncan all time and become the best power forward ever. But anyways, the Milwaukee Bucks can be a championship contender, but because they have Doc Rivers, they are at best a playoff contender. And if it doesn't get better over time, then Giannis must get out of Milwaukee. So, thank y'all for watching the video. Let me know your thoughts on the Bucks. Are the Bucks at best a playoff contender? Let me know, and be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more NBA content in the future. Turn on post notifications, and that is all. Stay litty. This is the A-Man Show. Sign out.